Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to our architecture tour of Dishonored. And today we are going to look at the Brigmore estate, or the Brigmore Manor, I suppose. And look, we're not in the city anymore. So the Brigmore Manor is a manor out in the countryside, I suppose. So we are near the water with a boat. We came in on that boat. The water seems to be higher than expected. I think the implication is that the sea level is rising. As we see later, the manor is actually flooded. So I think the setting of the story is the sea level rise. And so that's why the city is flooded, and that's why also this place is flooded. Oh wait, look, there's houses up there. Maybe we're not as far from Dunwall as I thought we were. Hold on, let me just step back here and have a look up that cliff. There's no buildings on that cliff. But there are buildings on that cliff. I guess we are just outside the city, like we're not actually that far away from the city. In fact, we are right next to it. Okay. I thought we went all the way out, but no, we're actually right next to the city. Alright, so the city is up there, and we are in a little valley. I mean, it's not really the best place to build a manor, is it? You're in the bottom of a valley, so it's liable to get flooded, especially since you're near the ocean anyway. A place like this would often be a swamp, like when you have two mountains on either side. It usually means you're in a river valley, and if the river runs down here and all the silt piles up where the river meets the ocean, then it's going to become a swamp. So this should be a swamp, and maybe it was a swamp, and maybe the swamp got drained for the manor, and then now that the manor is falling apart, it's returning back into a swamp. Maybe that's what we are looking at. That would be plausible. I don't know if that's actually the story here. But you can see like there's water here, so it is flooded. And it is kind of like a swamp, and so it is quite consistent with the possibility that this place is in fact it was drained for the manor, and then now it's when you can see the fence is broken, and as we move inside you'll see that the manor itself is quite run down as well. So it's returning into a swamp. There's a house or a little outbuilding here. Not entirely sure what this is, but there are seats here. Maybe this is like a guardhouse. Although the guardhouse you would think would be in the wall. Sometimes rich estates out in the countryside would have a little guest house outside the walls, so that if anybody arrives at night, for example, they can go to the guest house and stay until morning, and they don't get let into the main house until morning, right? That's possible. Well, I mean, it could be a guardhouse. It could just be a... I don't know. I mean, we would assume that it's built for either meeting guests or serving guests before they go into the main house. Or maybe anybody who has business here but aren't important enough to be invited into the main house would just drop off whatever messages or deliveries they have here, and then they get kicked away. And they don't actually get to approach the main manor. That's also possible. So an outbuilding, and then the path continues under the water up to the manor. There we go. So the manor is rather simple. Architecturally, it's I think even simpler than the city. Like, it's not extravagant, at least not on the outside. Rustic manners. So having, like, rich people having houses outside the city has been going on for some time, and there are some famous Renaissance examples. So why would you, even Roman, all the way back in Roman times, rich Roman people, to get away from the crowded city, would build like weekend manors out in the countryside. So there are a number of reasons why you would build a manor in the countryside. One is productive. So imagine if you own land out in the countryside, you would have a manor, you would live there, but the manor would also be productive in that the land would also be a farm. So the farm building and the manor would be in the same complex. So if you have a productive farm, then you would have a manor and you live there and you'd be like a landed aristocracy. Alternatively, you are a city person who is rich enough to be able to buy land outside the city and build a house there for holidays or for weekends or just to get out and get away from the crowded city. And in that case, you might not have a lot of land, and so you won't have a farm, and it won't make money for you in that way. It's not productive, right? You don't grow stuff there. But you just live there as a suburban getaway. So those are the two main variations. And if we look here, there's no farms here. So we would interpret this as being the rich person buying a holiday home out in the countryside, and not actually a like this is not actually a farmhouse. That creepy statue talks to you and screams at you, so we might have a look at that later on. It's not that important for the architecture. So the ground is, I think this is like sinking into the ground, and this looks rather like a swamp, as we said earlier. That side of the building, given that the ground is turning into mud and the whole thing is sinking into the ground, there's bits of wood, beams of wood holding up the walls, which would be necessary. Like if your foundations are slumping, and your whole building is kind of like leaning over like this, then you would need beams to hold up the walls. Is it diagonal? Hold on. Let me just line up my... So I think that's slightly diagonal there. Is it? It's quite subtle though, isn't it? It's how can we measure the verticality of this? This seems to be leaning over a little bit. It might be an optical illusion though, I'm not sure. If it is leaning over, it's very subtle, isn't it? Like, I'm just trying to line up the window there. So is the window horizontal or is it leaning slightly? Can't really tell for sure. Or is it leaning outwards or inwards? Well, it's not leaning too obviously, so if it is, it's quite subtle. Sometimes when buildings are falling down, you can actually tell because they still really start leaning over and everything starts to crumble. Presumably this thing would be leaning soon, if not yet. So we're not going to go inside yet. Let me go around to the back. Oh, there's no easy way to get onto the back, and that's a bit odd too. In terms of gameplay, it makes sense because the game design, the game level, wants to put a barrier between you and your objective. And so some of the objectives are in the backyard, and so you're supposed to find your way back there. But realistically, if we imagine this was a real manor, the fact that there's no path around to the back is a bit strange. I mean, there is a path here which is fallen down, so this staircase would lead up to that greenhouse. And I guess this counts as a path to the back. But the fact that you have to go inside the greenhouse... Actually, no, it's not, because look, from the greenhouse, there's no staircase up there. So this is a dead end. So it's a dead end on this side, there's a gate on the other side, not a gate, a fence on the other side. So there's no way to get from the front yard to the backyard except through the house. Which is strange. Which is unusual for a house like this. But as we said, this is for gameplay purposes. We can jump up here though, so this wing is, well, it's crumbling, as you can see. I guess we should have a look at the roof and the construction too, actually, before we do that. Let's see, so stone walls. Wait, what's going on? Stone wall. Oh, the greenhouse is steel and glass. I mean, we've seen this sort of thing before at the top of the lighthouse, for example. So this is we've established that this sort of technology exists in the game. Wait a minute. But if this man has been abandoned long enough for it to start sinking into the swamp, maybe this is incorrect. because aren't greenhouses relatively new in this world? This might be wrong. I mean, greenhouse, like the technology to build the structure exists, yes, but it's also relatively new, and so I'm not sure if we should find this sort of thing in a crumbling manor, unless, I mean, the glass. There's no detailing in the glass, unless the glass is not mass produced. I mean, mass produced glass is one thing. I guess if you were really, really, really wealthy, you can produce these glass panels by hand. Instead of using the float glass technology, you can just kind of make them by hand. Usually glass made by hand would be less flat, and so then there'll be distortions in the glass. But that might be just a graphics thing in the game and not actually representative of what the glass technology actually should be. I mean, if all the glass is made by hand, this would be a really expensive greenhouse, but that's okay. I mean, it's a big manor. Also, the greenhouse is retrofitted onto the side of this building. That's a bit odd. Wait a minute. Do you see that there? That's just sloppy. That's just sloppy level design there. What's going on there? The iron frame is intersecting the stone there. Okay, well, if we don't mind the sloppiness, so the greenhouse has been attached to the so the stone manor would have been older, and then this is like a new addition attached to the side. But again, it's quite odd that there's no door here. You would think they would put a door into the manor if they add a greenhouse here. So parts of it are plausible and parts of it are not as plausible. Anyway, let's go back inside. So the main building is stone with wooden floors. And then if we climb up there, the roof is timber rafters and timber, and then on top of the timber I believe is lead. Lead sheets, which you know, before the Industrial Revolution, because lead is a soft metal, and so it's relatively easy to shape by hand, and so a lead roof you could just kind of do it by hand without needing machines. So lead roofs have been around for a long time, although it is relatively expensive compared to things like shingles and thatch. Alright, so if we come back here, the back of the manor, again it's very simple, isn't it? There's not much decoration. There's not a lot of carvings or detailings on the outside of the building. So, I mean, it's not. It's a big manor, but it's quite sensible. It's not extravagant. It's not unnecessarily extravagant, let's say. So maybe the Brigmores are sensible people. There's a gazebo back here. That statue's gonna scream at us pretty soon. The backyard has been overgrown, so the trees are magic. That's strange things to say. The trees are magic. The Brigmore witches, the Brigmore Manor has been occupied by witches, and the witches have nature magic. So the trees are magic. So, the manor hasn't actually been abandoned for several hundred years, because the trees look like they're at least several decades old, probably more than several decades old. But that's not what the story is. I think the story is that the manor hasn't been abandoned for quite that long, and the trees have been grown using magic, so they are older than they appear, I believe, is what the story is. Alright, so there's a lot more. So the trees are bigger and more numerous than they should be. I'm not sure what this little thing is. There's a little gateway here, but this does lead back into the backyard, or the back of the manor. I mean, there's a gateway. I mean, that's pretty cool, but it doesn't lead anywhere. It just leads to cliffs. The manor backs into cliffs. You can see the waterfall there. So I guess the river comes down here, and then everything just gets flooded into a swamp. Uh, it's a little odd. I mean, I would expect there to be a channel here because look, what happens is if you want to drain a swamp, what you need to do is you need to artificially cut a channel for the river to flow out quickly. So a swamp is a slow river, right? When the river reaches flat land and it slows down, all the water spreads out and it slows down, and so then you just get a wide flat area of shallow water, and that's what a swamp is. So in order to drain the swamp, what you need to do is you dig a channel so all the water kind of falls into the deeper channel, and then the surrounding land dries up because all the water, instead of being all spread out flat, is now drained into a smaller ditch. And so then in order to drain the swamp and build the manor, I would expect there to be a ditch here, or like a channel where the water would have flowed. But the fact that we don't see it is a little strange. I mean, there should be at least some remnants of an artificial channel, is what I'm trying to say. And maybe even like a bridge across it. I mean, if the silt is allowed to pile up again, of course it turns back into a swamp. But there would still be signs of the old channel, and then maybe like a bridge across the channel. That would be cool, but we don't see that. And back in the front yard, there's no channel on that side too. So it's not clear how they built the manor here if this was always a swamp, and they never actually drained it. Again, back here, like there's no place for the channel to go because this is another building. There's a garden shed back here. I mean, it's meant to be a garden shed, but it's pretty extravagant too. And not as much equipment as you might think. There's seedling planters. Let me just check the roof there. So the timber, it's a flat timber roof? A flat timber roof? That doesn't make any sense. A flat timber roof with no drainage. This would never work. This would never work because whenever it rains, the rain would just leak through to the building below. Or if it doesn't leak through, then it becomes a swimming pool up here. So a flat timber roof with no drainage is incorrect. I don't know what the designers were thinking. This doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, I mean, at least some downpipes would make sense, but there isn't. Ow. Yeah, there's no drains. The water just sits there, or it just leaks through into here. Alright, well, this shed is a bunk. Let's see, a little terrace in the garden, and this goes back into the main building, although we can't go through here. We have a fountain. Even the fountain is not that decorative. Look at it. It's just a dish, really. Remarkably simple architecture. Where does this go? Another little shed thing. Oh, we came in through a window. Another little shed thing with a flat timber roof. Like, why would they do this? Look, this is the DLC. I think the architect took a break in the DLC and they had someone else do this. I mean, everything else in the game has been quite correct and quite plausible so far. But I think the DLC is slightly lower quality than the rest of the game in terms of just the architecture. The gameplay is fine, but we're not talking about the gameplay. The architecture is less good. Anyway, let's not dwell on that. I want to come out here because there's a balcony back here. Let me just climb up here. And then climb up here. So we have a balcony, but there's no door into the building. So this is completely redundant again. This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. What, ow. Okay, let's not fall off. Why would there be a balcony if you can't access it? Now, this is completely redundant. Yeah, okay, well, the architectural break. And they had the B team do the DLC. So there's another little uh, terrace up here, or balcony. Oh, cool bridge, look at that. So you would think that they'd put the terrace where there's a view, but there's not much of a view, is there? I mean, I guess there's the waterfall, but it's just rocks. So it's not a very good view from here. Although I did want to come up here because we can see the construction of the roof area a bit more clearly. Why would you have a downpipe from there? That's not even a... I mean... and why would you drop the downpipe to nothing and you just... That downpipe doesn't make any sense. I mean, okay, this one just goes into the house, which is also strange, because like, how would you drain the water out? Yeah, no, there's all sorts of errors here. Anyway, so the roof, as we said, is sheet metal, most likely lead. Can we get up there? No. And if we come inside here, into this ceiling space, we can't really see very much because it's quite dark. But it's a timber frame, timber rafters, and sheet metal. We can see it more closely here, right? There you go. And some of the sheet metal has fallen off, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, it should leak profusely into the house from here whenever it rains. Although here we can see what it looks like when it's not broken. So it's quite nice when it's not falling apart. Although again, you know, we have the roof sloping in from all sides. I don't know where the water goes. Again, like we have a standing pool of water here, which is strange. Is this supposed to be bitumen? Is this meant to be a bitumen roof? They didn't have bitumen roofs back then. Inconsistent technology and I don't know where the water goes. Alright, let's go back out to the front door. So yeah, like it's not as decorative as you might imagine. I mean, less decorative than some of the other buildings in the game. Oh, this is interesting. So this used to be a geometric garden, but it's been pretty flooded. So there's a triangle there, triangle there, triangle there, and then there's a tree in the middle. So there's a little geometric thing in the garden here. Yeah, and so as I said, like you would expect there to be some sort of ditch to drain the swamp in order for the manor to be built, but we don't see any sign of that. What is this building? Like, what is this little tower thing? And why would it be here? There's no way to get into this tower. But it has windows. It has windows, but you can't get inside, so I don't know what on earth that's meant to be. Or that. Alright, let's go inside. Hopefully the enemies have not respawned. Oh, water, look at that. So the entire inside of the building is also flooded. Not entirely sure how though, because it wasn't flooded outside, right? Hold on, let's go back outside. So outside, the water level is like 4 steps below the floor there. But then when you go inside, the water level is above the floor. Here. Well, I mean, given that the roofs slope inwards into the building, I guess whenever it rains, all the water just pours into this place. And so it's a swimming pool on the inside as well. So, in the front door, we have an entryway, an entry foyer with a lot of paintings. Well, there used to be paintings here. Into a grand double-height staircase area with a fireplace. This is kind of nice. This goes to the basement, so it's not that interesting. This just goes into the basement. So, on this side, we have a large hallway. I mean, it's nice. It's got big windows on one side, although I'm not sure what would have happened here. It seems to just be a hallway. We won't go upstairs yet. We'll go upstairs after we look at the ground floor. So a giant hallway on one side of the front door, and then on the other side of the front door, another giant hallway. Well, there's bookshelves in this one. But again, like, what would you use this space for? Can't really tell. I mean, what spaces would you have? Like a dining, living, library, bedrooms, offices. Like, but like it doesn't appear to be any of those. I mean, sometimes a palace would just have halls and halls and halls with no real use, just because, like, they want a really big palace, but they can't really think of what to do with all the space, and then so they just have halls and halls and halls. Wait, is the inside bigger than the outside? The outside of the building doesn't seem quite this large, does it? Oh, it's possible the interior is bigger than the exterior. Alright, so halls, brick on the inside. I'm not sure about this exposed brick. Okay, well, there used to be wood paneling. Okay, I see. So it's brick structure, and then wood paneling on the outside. Although if you remember, outside it's not brick, it's stone. It's stone on the outside, but brick on the inside. But I mean, if the internal walls are brick, okay, that's plausible. But shouldn't the exterior walls be stone, given that it is stone on the outside? Anyway, so brick used to be covered by timber panels, but most of that has fallen off over here, and the roof just is broken as all the rain pours in. We're not gonna go there just yet. Okay, let's go back in. I don't know. I mean, it's just halls and halls. Like, what are all these spaces used for? Nothing, apparently. This is another room. Although again, there's a fireplace, and then there's a cupboard. I mean, there's two fireplaces. I don't know what this place would be used for. Alright, let's go upstairs. I mean, we're looking for things like, toilets and dining rooms. Like, anything to suggest to us what this stuff is used for. There's a hallway filled with dead animal heads. Oh, upstairs the wood paneling is significantly less fancy. Or, wait a minute, this is fine. This is significantly less fancy, so maybe this is where the servants... Oh, wait, we got enemies respawning. Hold on. Who made that noise? She did. Excuse me, we're looking at architecture. Alright, no witches allowed. Back to the architecture. If I can end that, put that away, put that away. Alright, so back to this. Oh no, because look, this is less fancy, but then this is the fancy wood paneling again. Okay, but I mean, there's a bricked up doorway there. Maybe the servants' quarters are back there. In the middle of the house? I mean, maybe there's kitchens back there. I don't know where the kitchen is. This staircase just goes back down to here again. Alright, let's keep walking around upstairs. So we have halls and halls. Oh wait, that's dead end. On the other side, windows behind here. Wasn't there a balcony out here somewhere? So that's the main door. Or is the balcony... No, the balcony should be... here? How do you get to the balcony? No, look, I feel like this manor is not entirely... Like, it seems a little undercooked to me. Like, things don't entirely make sense. Up here we have... I mean, there's a fireplace and then there's a tool rack. Why would there be a tool rack? And then there's like really fancy red and gold paneling back there. But there's a tool rack. Why would that... Is that new? Is that recent, the tool rack? Wallpaper. Alright. Wallpaper and... a little sitting area, okay. Alright, we have a chair. And a bedroom. Alright, we found a bedroom. Although they have growing plants on the bed. So the bedroom is... Alright, so to go up the stairs and around to get a bed... Okay, this is pretty private. Although we are above the... We're above and just to the side of the main entrance here. And then there's the bathroom here. Okay, we found one bedroom and one bathroom. I guess that's better than nothing. And we can go... Oops, wrong one. We can go further up. And we have an attic. And we have loot up in the attic. I mean, there's mattresses, but that wouldn't be original. More mattresses in the attic. I mean, look at that. So where it's intact, it's actually... Look how fancy this stuff is. The interior of the manor is significantly more decorative than the exterior. Although, I mean, stuff like that, look at that, doesn't really line up there. Wait, it's not even symmetrical, look at that. What happened there? This thing is like that. And this side is... Who made this? Come on. Come on. Alright, well. The architecture in this thing is undercooked. I can't deal with this. Alright. So this is the manor. We can't entirely figure out what the plan is. I mean, the bedrooms being upstairs makes sense. Downstairs, the front of the building is just halls and halls. We haven't found the dining room, we haven't found the kitchen, we haven't found any toilets. We found one bedroom and one bathroom, and that's it. So we can't really make sense of this building. I mean, I do understand that the whole thing is abandoned, and I do understand that everything's falling apart, so it is... And most of the house is walled off as well. So it is difficult to make sense of a building that has been so neglected and so run down. And all the furniture is been moved around and removed. I mean, the curtains are still there though, look at that. Bright red curtains there. But still, it makes less sense than I would expect, this building. So back here, I think, is the last place in the manor that we want to look at. There is a painting there, but that's part of the game. So up here in the back of the house, on the second floor, we have... What is this? Is this where the balcony is supposed to be? No, that's not it. The balcony should be there, but there's no doorway out to the balcony. In fact, there wasn't any doors out to the balcony outside either, was there? No, there wasn't. No, the back balcony didn't have any doors leading out to it. It had a table and a chair, I think, but no doors. You couldn't get out there. You couldn't get out to the balcony from inside the house. And then we have a hallway with little alcoves for paintings. I'm not sure what that's good for. And then back here we have another... what is this? What is the point of... I mean, I guess the door used to be there. Okay, the door used to be there. It's been turned into a painting room, but it wasn't originally a painting room. It's a double height space and really fancy windows behind. It's almost like a throne room, except there's no throne. There's no throne. Like, this is not where the emperor lives, and it's like at the very back of the house. This doesn't make any sense either. So I'm pretty sure the inside of the house does not match the outside. I'm pretty sure the inside of the house is bigger than the outside too. So this, I wish this was made better, but none of this stuff makes sense. Spatially, it doesn't make sense. It's missing bits and pieces. We're missing the furniture. We don't know what any of the rooms do. Unfortunately, this is going to be the end of our architecture tour of Dishonored. And it's a bit of a shame to end on a somewhat negative note, because although, I mean, the Brigmore Manor, it looks... Let me just go outside. It looks better on the outside. It looks fairly good superficially, but once you look at it in detail, you find that there's all sorts of gaps and errors and strangeness. Once you look at anything in detail in this level, everything just falls apart because it doesn't make any sense. But superficially, it looks good. And it's a little disappointing, but in a way it's not unexpected, because this is the DLC. So this is the very end of the DLC. So the downloadable content, you have to think about it this way, right? They design a game, and the game itself is designed as a complete package, or it should be. And then after they do that, they have extra money, or they plan to have extra money, so then they make the downloadable content. So from the complete package, they add on more bits at the end. And what usually happens for the DLC is that they would reuse assets, or they would kind of use the ideas that didn't make it into the main game, and they would kind of use those ideas in the downloadable content. So this is, I mean, a lot of DLC is lower quality than the main game, but they can get away with it because they're reusing assets that have already been made, so they can make things cheaper, basically, because they already have the assets made, and it's kind of just make more stuff using the same assets. But the problem with that sort of approach to game design is that you can tell that somebody's kind of put this thing together without as much care and attention as they put into the main game. And so if you look at it too closely, then there's a lot of strangeness. Whereas in the rest of the game, if you look at things closely, it actually makes a lot of sense, and you can learn, or you can read a lot more into the setting and the context and the backstory of the game by looking at the architecture. Not in this level though, which is a bit of a shame. And I've actually already left out 2 levels of the DLC that we're not going to look at. There is the legal district, and there's also the Draper's Ward. But those are parts of the city that are very similar to parts of Dunwall that we've already looked at, and so there really isn't any new ideas for us to talk about in those levels. So as I said, like with the DLC, you're kind of taking the same assets and you're kind of making more levels. We're using the old assets, and so there often isn't new ideas in the DLCs. It's just kind of more of the same. Alright, so that's gonna end our architecture tour of Dishonored. As I said, it's slightly disappointing that it ends on a slightly negative note. But maybe this is a good education, or a good opportunity to educate ourselves on the difference between like really well thought out architecture in video games and even slightly less thought out architecture in video games. Like once you stop thinking about architecture in detail, and once you stop designing the architecture with a lot of care and a lot of attention, then things fall apart whenever somebody looks at it closely. And this is an example of how not to do it. Although, to be honest, this is quite good in comparison to many other games. I mean, not many games have really good architecture, and Dishonored have quite good architecture, except for this final level. So this final level is perhaps on par with most games. I wonder if it's noticeable. I mean, I'm trained in architecture. I've studied architecture, and so I can spot this stuff, right? I wonder if other people can spot the difference between the quality of this and the quality of the rest of the game. I mean, if the answer is no, then there really isn't very much incentive for game designers to really pay attention to architecture, because if people can't tell the difference, then why invest the time and the money to make things really good if people can't tell the difference anyway? Anyway, that's a philosophical discussion for maybe a different video or a different time. For now, I'm gonna end the series here. Thank you for watching, and of course I've got other videos too if you wanna follow me on YouTube, or just go look at the playlist. Alright, I'll see you.